not be afraid of taking a different approach. The process of the public-private partnership, this public-private partnership, began almost 3 years ago. It has been controversial. It has been contentious. In spite of personal cost, I still believe it's the right decision for the future of not only Crystal Beach, but Fort Erie as well. A few things need to be said. We will receive an enhanced access point to the beach with new and better amenities at no cost to the taxpayers. We will not lose public beach access or the enjoyment of the beach. See, I actually go to the beach on a regular basis in the summer, and I've never seen Ms. Noyes down there, but if I do, I'd be glad to share my suntan lotion with her. I believe these 87 condo units will attract year-round residents, much like Ridgeway by the Lake will, or has, and will provide much-needed diversity in housing stock. I have heard interest from many year-round local residents who have the means and want this type of lifestyle. To halt this project at this time would show bad faith on the part of the town and open Fort Erie to litigations upwards of $1 million. It would also send a message to future developers that the town of Fort Erie does not keep its word. In business, as in life, time is money. Unnecessary delays, stall tactics, and roadblocks discourage investors from coming to our town. In his comments last week, I think it naive of Councillor Hill to think further delays and to leave no stone unturned sends the right message to developers. I'm sure when you were employed at General Motors, you knew the value of moving ahead in an efficient and responsible manner. Change is difficult and change is frightening. But as my dad used to say, if you do what you've always done, you'll get what you've always got. Great flowers and beautification efforts can only do so much. Enjoyable concerts at Waterfront Park and events like the Polar Bear Dip and the Crystal Beach 5K race all keep people coming to the beach. The consistent service of the Crystal Beach firefighters beyond their firefighting responsibilities enhance our community and serve our youth. However, these efforts are not enough. We need growth in both the industrial and residential sectors. For far too long, Crystal Beach has been the underachiever in the town of Fort Erie. It's time to do something spectacular for our community and raise its profile so it can begin its transformation. I have heard Crystal Beach referred to as a jewel. I agree. But an unpolished, loose diamond is just an expensive rock. When it's cleaned, polished, and put in the right setting, you have something you want to show off to everyone. This is the right setting. I believe it is. Many people in all parts of Fort Erie believe it is. And the governing body, the Ontario Municipal Board, believes it is. Thank you for your time.
Are there any questions of the delegation? Are there any questions of the delegation?
Yes.
Councillor Hill.
Thank you. And welcome back to the Chambers.
Councillor.
Familiar territory, no doubt.
Kind of nice on this side. I like it.
Well, I hope we look as good as the previous council up here, but anyway. I just want to comment on a couple of things that you had mentioned. One that you had indicated, and I think I got your words right, and you said no cost to the taxpayer. How was the $100,000 legal fee paid for?
It was through our public coffers.
So there was a cost to the taxpayer?
Yes, there was.
Okay, so the other question that I have is, again, along the lines of no cost to the taxpayer. And I have to refer back to Mr. Lund's notes because it does talk, because I don't have the agreement in front of me, but it talks about I believe it is some of the maximums that the Molineros will pay for under their project to us. And it states that in some cases, and I believe I've just forgotten the term, but the conference room area, I believe that conference room, they're paying a maximum dollar amount, I believe $830, if my memory serves me right. Anything that's over and above that, who would pay for that?
I believe as I recall, now I don't have the agreement in front of me either, but I believe what that part of the construction will come in under budget, and it provides a source of revenue as rental properties are used, as are a number of the other halls around the town that the town owns.
Okay, have you been part of the budgeting process to say that it would come under budget?
And that, we haven't gotten to that point.
Okay, thank you. One other question. It also states that Molinari's pay 1/3 of the cost for the new stormwater system. That would obviously, to the other question of 2/3 has to be paid by somebody. Who would pay for that?
Would.
So again, I thought I heard you say that there's no cost to the taxpayer. The other question that I have with regards to this is you had indicated that there would be litigation upward to $1 million. How is that determined in your estimation?
My estimation, it's just an estimation. It's a rough number, like other rough numbers have been used tonight. All statistics can be spun, but it's basically the cost that the Molineros have laid out to this point, and I'm sure they would at least, at minimum, want to recoup their cost if this council decided to back out of the contract.
But is it fair then to say that it's just a guess on your part?
Much like the other figures that were
It's not
quoted
based.
today.
It's not based on fact.
I think it's, I don't have them in front of me, but I could send you an email with how I came to that number.
I'd appreciate that because then I will share it with the town, obviously, because it's very important.
Send it to the councilors. No problem.
Okay? I'd appreciate that very much. Thank you very much.
Through you,
Yep.
Mayor Martin, am I allowed to ask a question of Councillor
No.
Hill? Okay,
No.
thank you.
To the members of the audience that continue to talk, I'll ask you once more to please allow the delegations to speak, allow the councillors to speak. If you don't want to be here and want to have your own conversation, please do so outside. I think I've made myself clear. This will be the last warning. Thank you very much. Any other questions of the delegation? Thank you very much, Councillor.
Thank you, Mayor Martin.
Next up is Mr. Sandy Nziata.
Good evening, and thank you for allowing me to register at the late hour. I appreciate the council's indulgence. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, members of council. It is probably a lot easier on that side than it is on this side, so that's a definite given. On Valentine's Day, I was hoping that this side of the audience would stand up and this side of the audience would stand up and everybody would just give each other a great big hug. But I don't think that's going to happen. But unfortunately, an issue like this has polarized our community. But I wanted to speak a little bit more in general terms about development and growth rather than specifics of the Bay Beach issue. I put a challenge to council through an editorial in this past newspaper, and I wanted to reiterate those concerns that I have, not only as a homeowner in the town of Fort Erie, but someone who plans on raising his family for a very, very long time in the town of Fort Erie. And right now, this council has some challenges, just like previous councils have had challenges with respect to development and growth. Top of my head, we can talk about three specific factors that are impacting our ability to grow as a community, and one is the refusal of the provincial government to expand the urban boundary. Now, the urban boundary, for everyone who knows, is that imaginary line that development can take place in. If you consider it a pie, the urban boundary has some constraints and has some restrictions within that pie that development can occur. Here in the town of Fort Erie, within that urban boundary, we have an issue called provincially significant wetland legislation, which has sterilized a very large number of our developable spaces, whether it be industrial or residential. So not only can we not expand past our urban boundary, within the urban boundary, we have lands that have been sterilized for development. You add on top of that current residents that are consistently challenging plans of subdivisions, which is your right to challenge a plan of subdivision because they want to resist smaller lot sizes, condominiums and townhouses, and they're pretty much entrenched in their rural surroundings. That impacts our ability to grow as well. So we do have some problems with respect to sustainable growth. Now, when I talk about responsible sustainable growth, I waited on bated breath, just like everyone else, with respect to the OMB decision, and I was quite happy with the decision. As a council, we can only manage what we can manage. We are legislated, and we have specific requirements that govern our actions. There's a legislative framework that's been put in place, and that is how we choose our decisions. It's not necessarily based on personal decisions. It's not based on hearsay. It's not based on speculation or innuendo. We have a legislative framework that we have to operate in. And as we get the information that comes forward, we base the decision not only based on that legislative framework, but the overall holistic approach of what's in the best interest of the community. So when we look at the Bay Beach issue, that's one of the concerns that we always had is this a responsible development? Well, I can say unequivocally that the OMB has decided that it meets legislative policies and it is a responsible development. For council to back out of that decision at this point, I'm very curious to know is why they would back out of a decision that's been deemed a responsible development, a responsible growth opportunity for the town of Fort Erie, given all the challenges that we have with respect to growth throughout the greater Fort Erie area. We cannot pick and choose. Obviously, everyone knows it's private development that decides where they're going to develop and where they're going to invest. All we can do is inure the environment. Create an environment that is receptive and beneficial for the development community to come to our town. I think we've done that. When I talk about specific challenges we've had, and Councillor Passero in his capable hands, I'm sure he'll take the necessary steps as we go forward. I talk about the Bridgeburg community. Now in the Bridgeburg community, there is no inventory of land to develop. So we had some choices to make. To do our part for the rest of Fort Erie, we had to see, well, where can the Bridgeburg community grow? We wanted to do our part. We wanted to grow. We wanted to grow the tax base. We wanted to create regentrification and bring in new development, but we were limited because there was no available space. So there was two options we had. Expand the urban boundary, which provincially legislated we cannot do, or seek out land opportunities in order for development, and that was the Brownfield Incentive Plan. So we have brownfields that can be developed. We can raise whole neighborhoods, but again, that's not necessarily at the discretion of council, or we can expand our urban boundary. Because we're legislative mandated not to go beyond the urban boundary, we opted for the CIP, the Community Improvement Plan, and hopefully it'll be successful. It provides incentives for developers to come to our town and develop properties that would otherwise lay derelict or be underutilized, technically brownfield situations. That's what we've done in Bridgeburg. We've laid the groundwork. As a council, we inured the environment. When you look at the rest of Fort Erie, there are opportunities for growth. But you can't grow the tax base, which is going to alleviate the tax burden on all of us, reduce user fees, and certainly with private investment bring job creation. You can't do those things when your hands are tied legislatively. And like I said, this council has a legislative framework that it can work with. So when a development opportunity comes down and it's within the legislative framework and it's deemed a responsible development, I think it would be very, very inappropriate to turn your back on it without leaving no stone unturned and investigating the opportunities. We did that for a year and a half. This particular development, the Bay Beach development, was up for intense public scrutiny. It went through different levels to decide whether or not it met the requirements with the different provincial policy statements. And I'm telling you right now, we are hamstrung by a lot of provincial policy statements and different levels of government that have restricted growth within this town. Now, I don't want to argue or sing the benefits or the not benefits of biodiversity or the restrictive actions of the Niagara Peninsula Conservation Authority. They are mandated. They have a job to do, and that's to make sure that certain policies are put in place and enforced. But it restricts our ability as a community to grow. It restricts our ability as a community to develop lands that have been previously zoned and previously developable lands are now become sterilized. So we have an opportunity right now to say that certain requirements have been